Welcome to Breakfast with the Mayors. Welcome to Rolling Hills Community Church. My name is Eric Rojas. I'm on staff as executive pastor overseeing our staff and ministries here at the church. And it is always our extreme honor and privilege to host Breakfast with the Mayors. So as you come forward to take a seat as the program begins, I would love to have the honor of opening us with a word of prayer. Would you pray with me? Our good and gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning acknowledging you as the giver of all good things. Every good and perfect gift comes from your hand. You are in all and through all, and today we also recognize that your word says that you are over all governmental authorities and that nothing happens in this world without your desire, without your plan. And so today we ask a blessing on this meeting. We ask a blessing on our officials, on all that are represented here as we head into an election season. May there be wisdom. May there be truth. May there be the ability to bring our community together through the elected officials. We thank you for this privilege to gather this morning. We ask a blessing on our time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much. Good morning, Teresa. Good morning. So I'm Mindy Tate, CEO of Franklin Tomorrow, and welcome to our quarterly Breakfast with the Mayors, and we're glad you're here this morning. And Teresa, tell us a little bit about our partners.
Yes, we have our presenting partners this morning, who are Gresham Smith and Pinnacle Financial Partners.
And I've seen representatives from both of those, Vicki Manning, Linda Emlinger from Pinnacle, Kim from UHY, and other groups, Gresham Smith.
All right. And we also have our sustaining partners, Atmos Energy and Williamson Health.
Okay. And
we have Williamson Health's Michelle Simpson, who I believe is going to join us on stage.
Yep.
Good morning, Michelle.
There's a mic right there. It's on
here. I am Michelle Simpson. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for Williamson Health.
And one of Franklin Tomorrow's newest board members.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you for inviting me to join the board. I'm very much looking forward to that. And we are so proud of our partnership with Franklin Tomorrow and all the different events we get to sponsor throughout the year, especially this one. Also want to thank the mayors for always giving their time and energy to share with us such an important program. If you didn't know, it's been a little over 2 years ago since we broke ground on our historic $200 million expansion and renovation project at Williamson Medical Center. And last month, we were able to celebrate with the grand opening of the new Boyer Bryan West Tower at the hospital. And we are now seeing patients in that beautiful new space. So just wanted to get up here and if you weren't able to be with us last month, we wanted to show a little video recap of all the great things happening and just reaffirm our commitment to our mission, which is simply to provide for the healthcare needs of this community. And we are working hard every single day to make sure we do that. So enjoy this video.
Yeah, roll the video. Great.
You've heard the phrase elevating excellence, and I can't think of two better words to describe what we've done here at Williamson Health.
This is so nice.
This day and everything that's happened is probably the absolute biggest honor that, well, besides having my children, and I had them both here. It means so much to my family, and this is our home. This is our home hospital.
This project is for all of our friends, family members, and neighbors. We added 3 new floors on top of what was the original West Tower, plus a new north wing of the West Tower that encompasses all 6 floors, for a total of nearly 175,000 new square feet, taking us from 203 beds to 337 beds.
These new rooms, like all of the new rooms in the hospital, are brand new, they're large, they're spacious, they're modern, they're technologically equipped in a way that we've never been able to do before.
We have gained much needed space, such as an expanded waiting room, additional treatment rooms, and dedicated spaces for family consultations.
Childbirth is a beautiful experience, but the unknowns can also be scary. You want your labor and postpartum rooms to be as calming and as accommodating as possible, and that's exactly what we've created here at Williamson Medical Center.
I'm going to tell you, this is what we really needed to boost ourselves. We love to give quality care, and this is an opportunity for us to have a place to provide that, elevate our care to a higher level of excellence.
I personally have delivered 2 babies here at Williamson as well, and I've also utilized the emergency department for my kids. So I know how valuable it is to have a facility like this that provides outstanding care minutes from my house.
Probably heard our motto around here lately is more for you close to home. Our mission really is to treat the people of Williamson County here so they don't have to go to Nashville or elsewhere.
Caroline and I are just honored to be a part of this. We're honored to have developed even more friendships. Caroline has really worked a lot on this, and she's worked with some amazing people.
Yes.
We
It was a
actually were
wonderful
there.
day.
We were there. It was a wonderful day for sure. And we are so appreciative of the support we receive from Williamson Health as a sustaining partner. We also have some other partners that we want to thank: First Bank, UHY, and Hazen for being platinum partners, and also Vulcan and Williamson Memorial Funeral Home and Cremation Service. They are great partners. Now, how about breakfast this morning? Puckett's and our great friends at Lion Leadership Group, McDonald's franchisee here in Williamson County. That 96 West McDonald's, it's coming back, people. It's coming out of the ground.
The walls are up.
Yeah, I mean, I say I don't go eat fast food. Oh, that's such a lie. I mean, I like McDonald's. I'm big on Sonic. Hey, the Sonic just transitioned from red straws to blue straws, just in case you didn't know that already. But when McDonald's gets back open, I'll report on what color their straws are, okay? So it's big stuff, big stuff.
And just in case you haven't been paying attention, Election Day is this Thursday, August the 1st. How many of you got to vote early?
Great.
Yay, lots of hands up.
How many of you are going to go vote on Thursday? Yay, okay.
Yay.
No,
And I don't think I saw any of the same hands both times.
Well, except mine, but I won't be here. So, so if you are an elected official in Williamson County or in Franklin specifically, or please stand and let us thank you. And if you're a candidate, stand as well. So. Polls are open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for on Thursday, and so please, if you haven't already voted, please exercise that right. This is a state and county general primary. And then you'll go back in November for the presidential election. So we encourage you to vote. And we've got a lot going on. Franklin Tomorrow does. You can pick up some information at our table about an exciting first-time event that we're doing, a Vision City Conference, and we're doing that in collaboration with Seaside Institute out of Seaside, Florida, Walton County, Florida, October 15th through 17th. They actually came to Franklin 20 years ago, Seaside Institute did, to study West Haven, and we have invited them back 20 years later for a conference focusing on being in the downtown campus concept with the theme of how history impacts the future. Seaside is very focused on sustainability, connectivity, and adaptability. And if you've ever been to Seaside and 30A, Walton County, it is a gorgeous community. So they're coming back October 15th through 17th. We've got some great speakers. We've got some flyers at our table, or you can go to our website and find out more information. It is 3 days of great national and internationally known speakers, as well as focusing on what's happening here in Franklin and Williamson County and in Seaside. So we encourage you to find out more about that, and we are excited to bring them back to Franklin. Thank you so much.
And if you register by August 15th, you get a discount.
Yeah,
So
we love that. You get a discount.
jump right on that.
And we do have a daily rate. We're about to release the agenda, but you can either pay for the 3 days, or we do have a per day rate that will be available. But Steve Nygren, who's the founder of a unique community called Serenbe, will be joining us on Tuesday. We're going to have another breakfast with the mayors, but it won't be with the mayors here, as well as the mayors from Greenville, South Carolina, and the former Carmel, Indiana Mayor James Brainerd. So we're very excited about the opportunities here at the conference. We've got a registrant already from Washington State. So we're excited to see that. But thanks, Teresa. And
Thank you.
We'll go from there. So great. I'm going to go ahead and call the mayors and our guests up on the stage. Again, thank you to Gresham Smith and Pinnacle Financial Partners, who help keep Breakfast with the Mayors free, and we really appreciate that. But we'll call Mayor Rogers Anderson and his guest Christy Ransom to the stage, and Franklin Mayor Dr. Ken Moore. Those stairs are tricky over there, y'all. They're in the dark. So, but please welcome Mayor Rogers Anderson, Christy Ransom, and Ken Moore.
Thank you, Mindy. Appreciate
Big
the
green
opportunity.
Uh-huh.
So this morning, over the last 2 years, almost 2 years, the cities, all 6 cities and the county, have been working on an improvement and a new date for the urban growth boundaries. And so in the process of doing that over the last almost a couple of years, we've had Christy Ransom, who's the expert on that, who's on one of our attorneys that has directed us through that process. And I have asked her to go through the slide presentation. Personally, I think it's one of the strongest pieces of public policy we put together on this issue, the first time in 20 years, but also just good, solid public planning as far as how zoning will occur, how annexation will occur over the next few years. Christy?
Well, thank you, Mayor Anderson, and thank you, Mayor Moore. Good to see you, and Mindy. Again, I'm Christy Ransom. I'm one of the attorneys for Williamson County, mainly working on the planning and zoning and environmental part of county government. So I had the pleasure of being able to work on this project the second time. Mayor Anderson and I are some of the few that are still around that got to work on it the first time around when we adopted this. So hopefully, if you don't mind, I'm gonna stand. I can't sit and talk very well, so I may walk around a little bit, try not to look too much like Oprah. All right, so let's talk about the Williamson County Growth Plan. I know that's why I'm here, and I'll try and walk you through it. It's kind of a long process. We've worked on it for 3 years almost, but we finally have a new one, and that's very exciting. So let's get into it. So this is the growth plan that we've had for over 20 years. The countywide growth plan is different than what you would think of as comprehensive plans, land use plans. Every jurisdiction has one of those. Those are the vision for what that jurisdiction wishes to see its growth in that jurisdiction. The countywide growth plan is exactly like it's called. It's countywide, and so it requires the cooperation and the communication of all the communities in Williamson County. It establishes urban growth boundaries, which I'll talk about those in just a minute, planned growth areas, which are out in the unincorporated area of the county, and rural areas, which is everything in the unincorporated area that's not a planned growth area or an urban growth boundary. It is, in fact, mandated by a state legislature. So back in the late 90s, the General Assembly passed the growth plan law that said that every county, except metropolitan governments, had to have a growth plan. They had to work with the cities in the county to figure out where growth needed to occur or was going to occur, or where the counties and the cities wanted it to go, over a 20-year period. So the county worked with the cities back then, and we adopted this growth plan. So as you can see, you've got the city limits as they were back then. This was adopted in 2001. And then the growth boundaries are those lighter colors around the city limits. Everything out in the white is what was considered rural area or planned growth area. So we've had that since 2001, and as you all know, there have been a few changes in the county since then. So we've had some growth. We've had some new friends join us here in the county and in the cities, and we expect a few more. So as you can see, we've got some population projections up to potentially 536,000 in 2040. So where are all those folks going to go? Well, that's kind of what the growth plan is supposed to help us figure out. So why did we update the growth plan now after over 20 years? Well, it's been over 20 years, so it's long overdue. As we said, there's lots of changes. So we needed to figure out what's different. And so the growth patterns have changed. What we thought was going to happen back in 20 plus years ago, where we thought people were going to live, where we thought growth was going to happen, where infrastructure needed to go, that's obviously changed, and so it was time to study it. Also, Williamson County updated its comprehensive growth plan, and so when we adopted the growth plan in 2020, that called for a reevaluation of these areas as well. So I'm going to talk briefly about that. So the county studied and updated its own comprehensive land use plan back in 2020, and it had a couple of big key points. It said that we were going to reduce allowable residential densities out in the county so that the growth was directed more toward where the city services would be, the urban growth boundaries. And then the county has some small nodes called villages and hamlets. It also encouraged that we engage the cities in a collaborative regional growth management plan effort, and that's kind of why we started looking at this. Now, because we haven't updated the growth plan in over 20 years, it's not something that you can just snap your fingers and do, obviously. And again, the growth plan, the process for amending it, adopting it, all of that, that's controlled by the state statute. So we had a limited time to actually formally do that. And so the county and the cities determined that it was best if we did a more informal growth management planning process to start with, because again, you can't just snap your fingers and figure out what to do for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years within a 6-month window. So the municipalities and the county got together and in their own individual jurisdictions, as well as together, studied the population projections, studied the land that's available for future growth, and then where infrastructure should and should not be provided. So there was an advisory group that was created for this informal growth management planning process, had representatives from each of the jurisdictions, all of the cities in the county, and then some additional stakeholders like the schools, economic development, utilities. There was also a key group that was formed of the planning professionals in each of the jurisdictions, the planning directors and long-term planning professionals who worked together as well to study the land use availability, to study the population projections, and they were key in providing information that the elected officials and appointed officials could use to make these important decisions. We also had some technical advisors that we could call upon that worked in the streets and roads and highways, again, utilities, in case that additional expertise was needed during the process of study. And then the county brought in a facilitator to kind of help us talk through all of this. So during that regional growth management plan, that informal process, there were some goals and strategies that were established that actually found its way into, many of these found their way into the ultimate growth plan. And those included creating some interim policies, or at least the plan to do so. So just to kind of orient you, and I'll come back to this in a minute, the urban growth boundaries are areas around the cities where they're projected to grow over time. But until the city actually annexes that area, it still remains in Williamson County planning and zoning jurisdiction. So in between that time, there'll need to be some interim policies that are discussed to figure out what to do with that land before it becomes, or until it becomes, annexed into the city limits. So that was one of the goals and strategies that was discussed during the informal process. Another was that the growth plan shouldn't sit still for 20 plus years. We need to kind of revisit it and talk about it a little more frequently. And so the strategy was that we would revisit the plan in 5 years. Another important point was that we would continue a long-term collaboration between the cities and the county. So that way we have this regular cooperation and communication about what's going on out in the county, because things don't necessarily stop at all the city limits. And then finally, that once the UGBs are established, that annexation should only occur within those UGBs, which would provide some certainty for the residents out there. So after we were going through the informal growth management planning process, obviously the cities and the county determined that, yeah, we do need to update this growth plan after all. And so the formal process, again, as the process is prescribed by state statute, it was formally kicked off in May of 2023 with the coordinating committee meeting for the first time later that summer. And I'll talk to you about those folks in just a minute. All right, so let's get back to a growth plan. What's contained in a growth plan? So you have these urban growth boundaries. Again, those are areas that are rings, essentially, around the city limits of where the cities anticipate or project that they might grow into over time. Also, out in the unincorporated area of the county, you have what's called planned growth areas. The county has these kind of smaller nodes out in the county, kind of crossroad communities, as they were traditionally known, where you see kind of a mix of residential use and non-residential use. You can see some small-scale commercial areas like Triune, like Grassland, like Leapers Fork. So that's what goes in the planned growth areas out in the county. And then everything outside of that, that's not in the city limits, not in a PGA or a UGB, is the rural areas. And that's the areas out in the county that we tend to call rural preservation. I know many of you, I see some familiar faces, are familiar with that. And then the county and the cities also determined that rather than just having a map, we would also have some implementation goals and strategies that are part of the growth plan. Okay, I think I went backwards. Let's try this again. There we go. All right, so let's talk about the process. Again, the Tennessee Code says what the process should be. And when you have an initial growth plan, you had quite a bit of time to actually work through it. But when you amend it, once you kick that process off, you only have 6 months to present a revised growth plan to the legislative bodies of the cities and the county to adopt. So having that advisory process, that informal growth management planning process was key to being able to meet those deadlines. So first you have to establish a coordinating committee, and the state statute says who is on that. And the coordinating committee is to kind of bring all this information together and study it and then recommend a growth plan to the legislative bodies. The coordinating committee is made up of the mayors of each of the jurisdictions or his or her designee if they choose not to serve. It's also made up of representatives from economic development, from schools, soil conservation, utilities, both municipal and non-municipal, and then the largest municipality and the county mayors are allowed to also appoint 2 additional members. So we essentially had a coordinating committee of 16 people who came together and met regularly to hear from the jurisdictions how they wanted to amend their growth plan, their urban growth boundaries, or their planned growth area in the case of the county, and then also hear from the public. So let me back up and talk about public participation. Before any of the cities or the county could present an amendment or a proposed change to the growth plan, they had to, by statute, conduct 2 public hearings. And I know many of our jurisdictions had more than that. There was quite a bit of public outreach in this process. And so after the jurisdictions did that, they proposed an amendment to the growth plan to the coordinating committee. After the coordinating committee discussed it quite a bit, they had a proposed draft plan, but first they also had to have their own 2 public hearings. And then again, there has been public comment at every single meeting of the legislative bodies, of the coordinating committee. So as I said, there's quite a bit of public outreach. So after the coordinating committee conducted their 2 public hearings, as required by statute, they tweaked the plan a little bit more, and then they proposed a draft plan. That draft plan went out to the legislative bodies of all the cities in the county to either ratify it or reject it. Now, the first round, it was rejected by a couple of the jurisdictions because they had some additional changes they would like to propose based on some public comment that they received. And so that first round was sent back to the coordinating committee with some suggested edits. The coordinating committee met again, and they took that into consideration and ultimately approved and recommended a second draft of the growth plan. And that's what was transmitted to the jurisdictions. So this is the 2001 growth plan, sort of. When we started working in summer of 2023, this is what it looked like. But it's got the UGBs as they were in 2001, but the city limits as they were in 2023, because we had to know what was already in the city, so therefore it couldn't be in the UGB. So this was the plan we started with. So just after the first week of July, we had the last jurisdiction to ratify this approved growth plan. So now all of the cities in the county legislative bodies have approved the growth plan, and this is what it looks like. This is Brentwood's city limits, and the lighter color is its UGB. This is Fairview's. And in many cases, some of the cities expanded their UGBs, but maybe retracted it in other areas, depending on where they saw their population projections. This is Franklin's. This is Nolensville's. This is Spring Hill. Now this shows the city, the county line. Of course, Spring Hill straddles both Murray and Williamson County's lines. And so we thought it was important to show both, but of course only the Williamson County side is part of the Williamson County Growth Plan. And then this is Thompson Station. These are the PGAs that the county proposed, and it's now part of the growth plan. So you have Triune, you have Arrington, Rudderville, and College Grove, and then Leapers Fork and Grassland. And again, everything in white is the rural area in the growth plan. So as I said, the first time we did this, we just had the map showing the UGB boundaries, the PGAs, and the rural areas. This time around, the coordinating committee and the county legislative body and the city's legislative bodies determined that it was better to have a broader plan. So you had the map that I just showed you, but you also have these goals and strategies, many of which mirrored what was proposed during the informal advisory process, that the county and municipality will work together rather to create these interim policies. What should happen with that land between the time that it's still in county jurisdiction, but before or until the city annexes that land. Now that the growth plan is approved, and once it's formally adopted by the state, which I'll talk about in a minute, that's when those conversations will begin to happen. And so once those policies are determined, maybe the county will have to adjust its zoning in those areas, maybe not. But those interim policies and those development policies need to be discussed between the county and the cities. And so, like some of the issues that were discussed the first time around for the UGBs, what type of infrastructure should be allowed while it's in county jurisdiction, but before the city takes it over. Specifically, one of the issues is the wastewater systems that are used. And then also, there's been discussion about perhaps once these policies are determined, maybe it should be memorialized in what's called an interlocal agreement. And I'll talk about that in just a second. So one of the other goals was, again, as I said earlier, that once these UGBs are established, that the municipalities not annex outside of the urban growth boundary. That gives a certain amount of certainty to our residents and property owners over the next term of 5 years or so. And so if there's going to be any annexation, and again, just because land is in a UGB doesn't mean it will be annexed, it just means that it can. And in many cases, the state law, and I'm not a municipal attorney, so I'm not going to be too specific about it, but in many cases, cities can't annex property without the property owner's permission. Again, we didn't want this sitting still for 20 plus years, so another strategy that's been recommended, that's now been adopted, is that the growth plan be revisited in at least 5 years. And that the implementation committee be created, an advisory committee, kind of like the coordinating committee, be created to go forward after this, that actually stays together, meets regularly to talk about planning and growth and transportation and issues that are affecting all the jurisdictions over time. And then there's also been discussion about perhaps creating a multi-jurisdictional entity to study transportation planning. So the different thing that we did this time, which is also a good thing, is not only did the cities and the county adopt the growth plan, they also adopted an interlocal agreement, and that's an intergovernmental agreement. It can be between two different governments. It can be between all of them like they are in this case. And so even though those are goals and strategies in the growth plan, the cities and the county went a step further and approved an interlocal agreement that actually adopts many of these goals and strategies. So now there is an agreement between all of the cities that we will revisit this growth plan in 5 years, that there will not be annexations outside of the UGB during this 5-year term before it's revisited, and that there be an advisory committee created with representatives of all the cities in the county that meets at least quarterly, can meet more frequently if they want to continue this cooperation and this collaboration. So that's now been memorialized in an interlocal agreement. So here's the current status. As I said, all of the jurisdictions have now adopted the growth plan, all of the cities and the county legislative bodies, and that interlocal agreement. The Tennessee Code says that we now must have it signed off on by the state. So there's a committee called the Local Government Planning Advisory Committee. It's housed at the Department of Economic and Community Development at the state. And so we send that to them, and we're in the process now of packaging all of the resolutions where the legislative bodies adopted the plan and sending that with a transmittal letter. It's my understanding that the committee meets again in September, and so once they meet and they approve our growth plan, that's when it becomes effective. And we can start those conversations between the county and the cities about those interim policies, and the cities can adjust their urban growth boundaries formally. And then once the LGPAC, as we call it, because who wants to say Local Government Planning Advisory Committee every single time, it's sent back down to the county mayor, and it's recorded in the Register of Deeds office, and that's our growth plan. So that becomes the official growth plan of Williamson County in lieu of the one that we adopted in 2001. And that's all I have. Thank you.
So just to briefly follow up, and Rogers and Christie or Mayor Moore, this was a real process, finding agreement, but now do you feel there's a greater sense of unity among the city leadership with the interlocal agreement and the ability to work together?
Well, I'll answer that in the American time. I think so. I mean, we felt very triumphant, I feel like, when we finally got through the process, because it did take a lot. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of time of, like I said, the planning professionals, and we even had an attorneys group of the city attorneys and me and then Jeff Mosley on behalf of the county to work through the interlocal agreement to make sure we were following the proper processes. So it became a collaborative kind of a team effort. And so I think having this advisory committee going forward will just keep that going.
Rogers or Ken? I mean, we had the mayors of all the cities for Williamson County here in April, and it was still a little contentious about lines in April. There you go.
I think it's important to remember that when you make sausage, it's not pretty. But the finished product is always good. And we need to be reminded of that. The cooperations between the cities, all of our cities in the county, we have worked through this process. It was not easy. There were many meetings we had at the Enrichment Center where we had 200 plus people, and we allowed all of them to speak that wanted to speak and took their comments. And a lot of those comments that were made were very heartfelt from the citizens, but we continually heard a common denominator and a fiber that runs through our county. Some didn't want any growth. Some wanted modified growth, and some said, we need growth to survive. And so out of this plan, and that's why I say it's good public policy. It's good public policy in which to have a process that you can go and pull those records up and see where the growth is going to occur for the next 5 years. One of the things that the growth, and Christie touched on it, but it allows our schools to see where the communities are going so that they can plan accordingly to put another school building there. But at the end of the day, and I'll hush on it, there are very few counties that have taken this job on the way that this whole county, all of our cities did, the planners, the professional people, and the time involved. We had very few people not there. We had utility companies that were there so they can plan. And the proof in the pudding will be 5 and 10 years out. We'll just have a better planned community for everyone to enjoy. And hopefully we can weave in more roads, more ideas like that, so it's just a better place in those years 2045 and 2050.
I really do feel that the updating this every 5 years is going to be a great process for public engagement and information, and for people to see that there are plans in place for where development will occur and how it will move into the various communities. So, Rogers, I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you. College Grove, growing and recognized as a zip code with some of the highest income in the country. Do we need any more cities in Williamson County? I know the answer, but go ahead.
Well, I guess we could go over and annex Rutherford County.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that. We'll go from there. So we're going to turn to Franklin Mayor, Dr. Ken Moore, and you, I'm sure, I mean, you all did have a public process and had public hearings and people participated, but sometimes you hear that we're just growing faster than we've ever grown before. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about the Franklin growth trends? And Chrissy will take that.
Oh, yeah, I'll take the little clicker job. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Mindy. And Rogers, just thank you so much for your leadership on this urban growth boundary. And Christy, your expertise that you shared with us, and you explained it to us dummies so we'd understand it. So thank you so much on that. First of all, I met some new people this morning. How many people are here for the first time? Yeah, great. Some of you I met, but that's great. Secondly, is Clyde Barnhill still here? Where is he? Oh, well, congratulate Clyde Barnhill, who just received the Bob Kirk Community Service Award for his long service to the city of Franklin. Bob Kirk was an alderman in Dyersburg, Tennessee, still living. He served like 40 years, and the Tennessee Municipal League annually gives out this award to an outstanding person that serves their city. And Clyde Barnhill certainly deserved it, and congratulations. And at the Tennessee Municipal League, which we've been very active in through the years, we also elect district representatives. And I'm glad to say that Alderman Jason Potts is a vice delegate from District 6, and congratulate him on his leadership. I want to make a little announcement myself. Mindy's talked about the Vision City event occurring in the city, but on October 25th, please put this on your calendars, at Columbia State Community College Science and Technology Building in their brand new auditorium. We're going to be hosting an event that will focus on the mental health of Franklin, Tennessee. We're going to have some highly recognized speakers that will be there and talk about the mental health and physical health of our community and how we can address that and create hope in our community for those that are suffering. Last night, about 8:15, we finished up with one of our strategic planning sessions where we've been working for some time already on creating a new strategic plan for our city. Our vision statement, which is 10 words, I think I'd like for you to hear what our vision is for the city, and that is that we will be America's finest hometown, driven by excellence, balancing preservation and progress. So I think that in those condensed version, that really says what our vision is for our city. And as we move forward as far as our mission statement and how we're going to get there, stay tuned for that. You know, I hear a lot about growth in Franklin, and that's what I want to address this morning and speak to how we're managing growth in our city. What did I do? Pointed at that? I don't think that's it. That's what I want, right there. Well, you know, past boards for the last 30 years have worked very hard to make Franklin a place, a destination. And we just recently got more recognitions. Fortune 500, we've never been on that list. We're now we're determined to be one of the top places for families in America. We're in the top 10, and then Travel and Leisure magazine recognizes also as a great place to live in the South. I think that both of those recognitions speak volumes for the work that not only are we doing in the county, but also the work that's occurring in our city to plan proactively for the future. And I'm always proud to say that everything that we're doing involves a lot of community input, a lot of staff planning. And I'm just not very good with this one. I was a surgeon, but my hands were better than that. Let's look at the growth trends that we've seen since 1980. And it looks like we were a pretty sleepy town back in the 80s, and then all of a sudden in the 90s it happened. And there are certain things like the Cool Springs Mall, the announcement of Saturn, the first office buildings in Cool Springs kind of stimulated what is happening, continues to happen. It looks like every decade we're growing about 20,000 people and have been doing that for about at least 30 years. When you look at where we are today, we continue to grow at about 20,000 people a decade, but the actual percentage of growth has declined compared to what it has been in the past. This is not to minimize that we still have infrastructure challenges, and we need more workforce housing for the growth that we're experiencing. Planning is a key. I frequently talk about how Franklin is such a well-planned city. Everything that we're doing, everything that you touch as far as the city is planned out for a very, very long time. It does start out with the urban growth boundary where we can determine where we're going to grow in the future. We just finished Envision Franklin, and we hear a lot about Envision Franklin, that you got to follow Envision Franklin, and we do our best to follow it. We do have occasions that it is amended, but the thing that Envision Franklin does, it does envision how land is going to be used in the future, but it also sets the bar very high on the type of projects we're going to do in Franklin. And it also talks about managing growth. Envision Franklin sets the bar on how land will be used, absolutely. It's our blueprint for our city, and our zoning ordinance, which we're currently revising and updating, will actually codify what's in the land use plan, or in our urban growth boundary, our land use plan rather. It's a proactive look on how we will use our land and simultaneously preserve our natural resources and open space while allowing easy access to parks and open spaces for all areas of the city. All of this, again, was developed over a long period of time with multiple meetings with the citizens of Franklin and a lot of public meetings, as I said. This is our new urban growth boundary. We looked on how we could actually realistically grow our city in the future. And most of the growth in our city is dictated by how we can provide services to that area, and most importantly, how we can provide sewer. Our UGB actually shrunk compared to what it had been in the past. Areas such as Gentry Farms were removed, in addition to some area in the South Hall area where it didn't seem feasible for us to be able to provide sewer in the near future. Additional areas were added, such as in the Groose Creek area, where we've annexed over 1,000 acres over the past few years, and this will be an area of significant growth in the future. So it does boil down to what we can actually serve and provide city services moving forward. We were one of the first to do an integrated water resource plan. That started in 2009, and we were projecting how we were going to provide water to our city, what we needed to be doing as far as providing sewer. And if you'll look at this growth chart, it shows how we projected we were going to grow. We used a a high number on fast growth and a low number for slow growth, and we're kind of right in the middle there. With our recent upgrade and expansion of our wastewater plant, we've added 4 million gallons of treatment capacity a day, and we've updated our treatment processes to be more modern. Most notably, we changed our biosolid treatment, what comes out at the end. What we used to have to haul to a special landfill that had a lot of water in it is now going to be Class A EQ biosolid, which means that you can go grab it and roll it in your hands, put it in your garden. It's more like a fertilizer now. Based on our current projections of our growth on projects that have been approved, and analyzing the pace of development that we've seen, we probably have about a decade left for that 4 million gallons of capacity that we just added. I hope this has given you a glimpse of our pace of growth and how we're addressing the challenges of growth. We'll continue to address the many infrastructure projects that we have on our list, and the board will be ranking them in the coming months and matching our financial capacity with what they think are the most important projects. We'll continue to work aggressively with regional planning and also Tennessee Department of Transportation to move some important state projects forward in Franklin, and in particular Southeast Mac Hatcher Parkway, which is a bottleneck. And we look to the coming months for additional progress in bidding on Columbia Avenue and McEwen Phase 4, and also we're getting ready to bid Southeast Park. So there's lots going on as far as great projects continue to plan how Franklin grows in the future and manage our growth. So thank you, Mindy.
Thank you, Mayor Moore. Thank you, Mayor Moore. Can I ask the booth, can we go back to slide 45, which was one of the first ones the mayor had, the chart of growth over the last, since the dawn of time in Williamson County, or it seems like the dawn of time. So I'm going to ask a silly question, and keep your hands up. So who came or moved to Franklin, Williamson County in the 1980s? Who came in the 1990s? Came in the 2000s? Who came since 2010? So
Who
I
came
think
in
it's
2020?
Who came in 2020? Yeah, in the 2020s. Okay, great. So thanks so much. I think it's interesting to think about that. I remember coming to Franklin in 1983 as a summer intern at the then Review Appeal to sleepy downtown Franklin, and there were 2 pool halls and 3 liquor stores on the main street. And my dad kind of questioned whether it was going to be safe down here from moving from the big city of Nashville. If Franklin and Williamson County were the places they were in 1980 or even 1990, 2000, would people want to live here? Would we have the economy we have today, Rogers or Mayor? It's sort of a political question. So is growth been good for Williamson County?
Well, let me start out by saying my wife was born here, her mother was born here, and whenever I decided I was going to retire, I said, "Hey, Linda, I think I'm going to retire." She says, "Hey, Ken, I'm moving home." So I'm glad my hearing was good at that time. But Linda told me, she said, you know, she's always described such an angelic childhood, and my childhood was very different because my father worked for TVA. We moved lots of different places, and then I was off to school, and you know, so I never had those solid groups of friends from grammar school all the way through college and so on. But she said if Franklin was the city I grew up in, I would never want to go back there. So I think we've done a good job as far as managing growth. I think we've put a lot of things in place to be very business friendly. You know, we're a very, very low tax city. Thank goodness for the county's responsibility with our schools, who's done such a great job educating our children. The fact that we have such a fabulously educated workforce that attracts people wanting to come to this city. And so you've set it in motion. Moving here throughout the 80s, 90s, 2000, to be a great place to live, work, and raise a family. And we work hard every single day, and that's why we're to keep it that type of place. And that's why we're going back through our strategic plan to make sure that we're addressing the concerns that staff has, that our aldermen have, and that also the community has.
Rogers?
That was a short answer.
That was the short answer. Rogers, it didn't just sprout up out of the farmland, what we have here? It just didn't sprout up? What did it take?
Well, I think you look back in the 80s, Michelle did a great job of talking about the $200 million expansion over at Williamson Health now. Where our offices are was where the hospital was. And to see the modern technology we're seeing in the healthcare, this community is made up of healthcare. You think about Streetscape, those early days of Mary Pierce, Rudy Jordan, Ed Silva, and I'm sure I'm leaving out somebody. When they came to us in the county and they asked us, well, they really didn't ask, they told us, a conversation with Mary Pierce went something entirely different than being asked. And they told us that we had the courthouse, a lot of that post office property, and we would be getting an assessment. We said, well, we don't pay taxes. And then that's when I opened up the gate. She said, right, you'll pay for a certain amount of feet along the walkways of Franklin. And out of that, I just think it's schools. I think it's our community. You look at our average age, it's just under 40. You look at one of the fastest growing areas of our children. I see Jason over here from 0 to 18. They're just flooding this area and still consistent, even with these high prices of land we have today. And then our senior population, which Ken and I fit into, that's the second fastest growing population that we have now. So you think about this community, how it's developed, it's really been the people. And it's been elected leaders. I know we've got an election going on right now. Some of those ads, I just don't recognize the people and the comments that they're making. But this is a great place to live and worship and raise your family and have a steady source of income, low unemployment. Businesses come here for a reason. And a lot of that is Franklin and Brentwood and Fairview and Spring Hill Thompson Station, Nolensville. But a lot of people still want to live in the rural parts of our county. And our numbers are up significant already again this year. So I doubt it would have been the same in 80, but that's true about any community that says we want to be better. And whoever the next person is, that's what they should say. Let's try to improve on what we've done. Franklin's done a good job, so has Brentwood, but have all of our cities too.
Great, thank you. Thank these people so much for this presentation, and we appreciate you all being here today. We wanted to talk to you about our August 12th Frank Talks. That's going to be a people to know conversation, and we'll be at Harbor and Union, and that's a new kind of a building at the factory. It is a building at the factory next to Mafioso's, and that's August 12th. And come meet these people in our community and welcome them, but also learn why they're here and what they're doing. Bradley Bouchers, who's the county archivist, Chris Musgrove from the Franklin Fellows Program, Tina Catterton, who is a business coach and one of the principals at Harbor and Union, and then Nat Taylor, who's the managing director for the Moore Morris History and Culture Center operated by the Heritage Foundation of Williamson County. That event is free also, and you can find information on our website. Don't forget our Vision City Conference, and you can scan that QR code at our table here in the auditorium to learn more, and we hope that you'll join us in October, because people are coming here to see how history impacts the future, but also that Franklin and Williamson County are visionary in how they are creating a community, and we're excited to partner with Seaside Institute on that program. So don't forget, Thursday, it's time to vote. August 1st, don't forget school starts next week. Jason Golden, Williamson County School Superintendent, is here, and we appreciate that for sure. But school starts next week, so follow us on social media, and we will see you at Frank Talks monthly, or our next quarterly event will be at the end of October after the Vision City Conference. So thanks. Go out and make it a great day.